Hey, good evening. This is Teresa Easterling, and I'm giving you my play by play feedback for the practicum with UT Tyler for my principalship. And it's really been a crazy couple of weeks. Therefore, I missed the sign up for the Zoom session. So I do regret that because I wanted to collaborate and talk with all of my classmates because that is such a vital part of the education journey. So I've been fortunate this school year to pull in the responsibilities that I have in my instructional strategy position to pull those into some of my practicum requirements. And I've also been able to experience some situations that are probably less common and a little bit uncomfortable. The most riveting experience I had so far this school year was having a teacher that um, was a alternative certification teacher who was really a very strong candidate, interviewed well. I interviewed him in the summer with my principal at that time, and we felt like he was a good match for our campus. So he came on as an eighth grade reading and writing teacher. We also hired his wife. She came to our campus as a seventh grade reading and writing teacher. So both of them started the school year in the language arts department, which is the department that I directly oversee. Around Thanksgiving, this teacher came to me and expressed that he was not sure that he would be able to finish out his contract. There had been a number of changes and some teaching strategies, methods that were coming down from the district that we were being asked to implement, and he was not comfortable with it. And that's not what he had signed up for. So I visited with him and I told him that that's a big move and that he would be leaving a large number of kids just kind of hanging, and it would put the department in a rough place and put the campus in a rough place. So I thought that he had rethought things and thought through the situation. So Christmas came and went. Um, I still could tell something was going on with him. He was taking personal time, particularly on Fridays and Mondays, being gone for longer periods of time. So, long story short, he did find a different position and a different career altogether. And over spring break, he notified the principal that he was giving his 2 weeks notice. So she texted me during spring break, and I knew that we were coming back, and we would have about 3 weeks before these kids would be taking their first administration of the eighth grade reading star. So I thought long and hard about it, met with my principal that Monday morning that we came back from spring break, and she asked me to be with her when he came to deliver his resignation. So she and I spoke before he came in, and I told her that I was probably shooting myself in the foot, but that the best option was to put me into that classroom and let me take over the teaching of those kids until they took their STAR test. He was going to work a 2 week notice, and um, that would have meant that he would have been leaving. He would have taught them for 2 weeks and then left, and they would have had 1 week before they took their test. And I just didn't feel that was best. So she agreed. So she also agreed that, he would still work his 2 weeks, but that he would not be in that classroom, and they would use him as a sub just to float paraprofessional type responsibilities. So that began on the Friday of that week. I asked to please let me have enough time to get my principal certification test out of the way. I had that scheduled for that Thursday. So I took the test on Thursday and took over his class on that Friday. And by Monday, he decided that he just was done, and he did not want to finish out his 2-week notice, and so he just left, which was really difficult to handle. There really wasn't, I would not have done anything differently than my administrator did. She, expressed to him that this was something that would definitely hinder his ability to teach. The unfortunate thing is, he did not have his full certification yet. So there is no certificate on which she can put any type of flag, because he just is not going to complete the program that he's enrolled in. So he really had nothing to lose. He had already researched it. He knew that there really wasn't anything she could do. And he just left. So the 2 weeks, 3 weeks that I had to work with those kids, I feel like it was valuable and meaningful. And if I had been the administrator in that situation, I think that would have been the best decision. We're struggling to find subs, and it would have been really hard to find somebody to put in there to work with them. And we're struggling right now because now I'm working with the intervention kids. So I've got the kids pulled out of classes that I'm teaching all day long that need to take the second administration, and we're struggling to find a substitute to just hold that class together to get us through the end of the year. So that's a really frustrating situation. So that was probably the biggest administrative type item that I had my hands in the midst of. I also was involved with SLO, and that started at the beginning of the school year. The 7th grade reading teachers had been selected by the district to be the pilot group. So that was 3 teachers on my campus. And when the year began, I did have SLO training during the summer. The district sent me to some training, and so I understood the basic concept. But when the school year started, the administration that I had on hand at that time did not really understand the concept. Therefore, there was no campus training for SLO campus-wide. I mean, there are teachers on my campus currently that still have no clue what's coming next year. They have no idea that 1/5 of their teacher appraisal is going to be tied to the performance data that's in their student learning objective. So these 3 reading teachers that I worked with, it finally was determined that we had 30 some odd kids on campus that were not being served in an intervention. These were 7th graders who did not pass 6th grade reading STAR, and they should have been in a lab, but we did not have them in a lab class. So we grabbed those 30 kids. The plan was to pull them from an elective 2 or 3 times a week. We did purchase an add-on. I was able to work with the technology department, did some research, found what I thought would be a somewhat meaningful program to allow a paraprofessional to help me facilitate this intervention, because keep in mind, I'm a full-time strategist coach, but yet they wanted me to do pullouts. And so I was really trying to be creative and find a way to keep my hand in it, but I needed help with it. It was just impossible. So long story short, again, those 30 kids plus 30 more that barely passed the test by 1 or 2 questions. So about 60 kids were targeted. And that group of 60 kids became the group of kids that were being tracked for the SLO for 7th grade reading. Looking back, that was not a good decision. SLO was really designed to be a targeted group for that teacher. So yes, all 3 of my teachers had kids in this SLO group, but it was really difficult for them to track the data, and their hands were very, very far removed from it. They had those kids in class, but as far as the intervention piece, there was somebody else on campus that was responsible for that intervention, and it really clouded the whole situation. So Something that I learned from that whole situation is to it's just the value of the campus leadership being educated and fully understanding when changes come about from TEA that affect your campus and affect your teachers, how important it is that you fully understand it. And then if you don't fully understand it, that you ask questions and you find people who can help you understand it, because you can't just fake your way through it, because it then leads to bigger problems. So then fast forward to summative time, and these three teachers are being asked to provide SLO data. There was a changing of the guard, so to speak, in the middle of the school year, so administration changed. The administrator that started with the SLO has now been um, put in control of another campus because her skills were needed. We have a new administrator who's first time principal. She does have AP experience, but it's her first time at the helm of a campus, and she was very overwhelmed and um, didn't didn't really know what to do, didn't know how it was going or what to do, and so I just it really brought home to me that I should not get myself into a situation where I'm not entirely confident that I have a good grasp on how things work. And there's just so much to it when you think of all the things that we've learned in this class and studied, from the law to the management to the leadership. It's overwhelming the amount of information that a strong principal needs to have in order to run a successful school. It's overwhelming. So, so SLO was another adventure on my practicum journey. Um, Being a part of the weekly administration meetings, I think, is wonderful that they include the strategists in those meetings. We are a part of the administrative team for the campus. And so I already had my foot kind of in the door to be able to see how things go on. I did meet with both assistant principals on occasion to ask them specifically about um, behavioral situations. While I was teaching that class, that eighth grade class, I had a situation where a student left my room. It was actually second period. So the kid left my room, and I'm standing in the hall because we are an NEU campus. And I also believe even if we weren't an NEU campus, it's really important for the teachers to be monitoring the halls and being active and being aware of what's going on. So I just stepped into the hall, was talking to a student, kind of had my head turned, and I hear a commotion kind of over behind my head. And I turn, and just as I turn, I see one of my students from another class just pounding on this kid. I mean, hitting him hard, direct contact on top of the head. The student fell to the ground. He was not trying to hit back or anything. So I obviously had to keep teaching after they cleared everything up. So when I had a break later in the day, I went and spoke to the administrator that handled it. And I said, I just would kind of like to know the chain of how things went, the flow of what happened. And so he shared with me, that in that situation, they get statements from both of the kids. They get statements from people who saw it happen. They pulled the video, which was very helpful in this situation because the video was very clear that it was not a fight situation. It was an assault situation where the student who was hitting caught the other kid completely off guard, and the other kid did nothing to instigate, and he did not hit back or try to fight back. He fell and was really trying to shield himself. So, and the perpetrator was very honest in his statement. He said, "Hey, the kid did something that I didn't like, and so I did what I needed to do to fix it." So he was very honest. So in that situation, that student was suspended for 3 days, and when the student returned to campus, he had several days of OCI, which is on-campus intervention, as opposed to ISS, in-school suspension. And the other student did not receive consequences. His parents were notified. The nurse checked him out because he was hit really hard. And then he said that the officer would speak with the parents of the perpetrator to let them know that, technically this other kid's parents could file assault charges. It was really hard for me to keep my mouth shut. It was really hard for me to not say anything to that student that was hit, because I've personally been through that situation with my own child where assault charges, I should have filed assault charges, and I did not. But I could not bring my personal situation into that. It was not any of my business. I was the teacher. It wasn't up to me to give any type of advice, I see how, if you're not real careful in those really intense situations, you might let your personal feelings overcome you, and you might say things that you shouldn't say. So that was a good lesson for me, in keeping things where they need to be, and also not talking about it with other teachers after the fact. It was really hard because there were a lot of teachers that were saying, oh, the kid deserved it. That'll teach him. Maybe he'll shut up. He's got a smart mouth, yada, yada. And I tried really hard to deflect that, kind of was trying to practice my hand at deflecting the negativity and keeping the culture, a little bit untainted. And it was really hard to do that. I was shocked at how some of the teachers were so hardened, and it's just kind of shocking to me. Okay, I'm trying to think of one other item. The other assistant principal has been overwhelmed with discipline. Her desk is just overflowing with office referrals. So spent some time with her. Actually, she had to have a meeting with a parent who the child was approaching a number of absences that they were going to be retained. So they had contacted the parent came in, and so she met with them, and she asked if I could sit in the meeting, and I did, and got to hear her explain to the parent how the child could make up time before school, after school. We don't have Saturday school, but before school and after school, the kid could make up time and keep track of it, and that it might be a good idea for the student to start banking some time in the event that he or she was absent an additional time before the school year ends. So the parent was very appreciative. The administrator handled it very pleasantly, did not chastise the parent, did not, punish them or talk down to them. She was very just matter of fact, and I thought that was a good way to handle it. Just kind of let the parent share why the child had not been coming, and the parent was able to see what needed to be done to fix the problem. So that was a good situation. The curriculum and instruction and the classroom, the learning part of the practicum, because it is a regular part of my job, that was not difficult for me to fit in. Did have kind of a difficult situation in that I was coaching a teacher who is not going to be renewed for next year's contract, and it was really hard for me to separate the line between my coaching notes and what administration might need in order to help them have sufficient data that this teacher does not need to be renewed. So it made me think, in that position as an administrator, that I would really need to make sure that I had been present, that I had been in that class, that I'd seen the teacher working that I had enough of my own firsthand information to be able to make that type of staffing decision. The instructional coach, that relationship is entirely different than an appraiser appraisee relationship. That coaching relationship is for the betterment of that teacher and to help them with their teaching practice. So the fact that they were kind of asking me to cross the line and use those notes kind of it did remind me that if I'm in that situation, that needs to be something I'm fully aware of. That that's that's my responsibility as the principal of that campus to ensure that I have the appropriate people staffed and that they're trained and that they're performing at the level they need to perform. And if that's not the case, I need to be addressing it with them firsthand and regularly, not just kind of hit and miss. So that was probably the last thing. So I've had a great experience in this program. I feel like it gave me the additional information that I needed to couple together with my master's in curriculum instruction to give me a really strong foundation. Don't exactly know at this point where it will take me. I wish every teacher, every educator had a chance to take just a mini course on the behind the scenes action of what it takes to run a school, and that they had a chance to know what a huge job it is. And I think, I think there may be some people that I think there may be some administrators I've had in the past that were in that position of leadership that had excellent qualities as far as um, managing the campus and just really holding everything together. And then there were those leaders that were stronger instructionally. And then I've had leaders that were stronger with their behavior management and their ability to keep a campus running smoothly. So I think it takes all of those things to make a good campus leader, district leader, school leader. And I'm hoping that the things I've learned in the courses over the past 18 months, that those will pull together and be what I need to finish my career in education and finish as an educational leader. So I thank you for your time. Hope you have a great night and see you guys at graduation.